My father waited until everyone was watching before he humiliated me at Thanksgiving dinner, asking loudly what I had actually earned this year from my little online hobby. But exactly 1 minute later, a corporate limo pulled into the driveway carrying the CEO he worshipped, and the look on his face when he realized I was the one being honored made 10 years of mockery finally worth it. My name is Harper Lane, and I'm 29 years old. This story is about the Thanksgiving dinner that changed my relationship with my family forever. It's about being underestimated for years and the single moment when everything I had built in silence finally spoke louder than any words I could have said. I still can't believe it actually happened the way it did. I need to give you some context about my family dynamics. I'm the oldest of two daughters. My dad worked his way up from factory floor to plant manager over 30 years. He believes in traditional career paths: college degree, corporate ladder, benefits package, retirement plan. Anything outside that framework is just playing around in his eyes. My younger sister Paige is 26, and she followed the script perfectly. Business degree from a state school. Entry-level job at a bank. Steady promotions. Sensible apartment. Conservative wardrobe. She's everything my parents wanted their daughters to be. Stable. Predictable. Safe. I took a different path, and my family never let me forget it. I dropped out of college after 2 years because I couldn't afford it and didn't see the point of drowning in debt for a degree I wasn't passionate about. My dad called it the biggest mistake of my life. My mom cried for weeks. Paige told everyone I was going through a phase. I started working freelance doing data analysis and building databases for small businesses. It wasn't glamorous, but I was good at it. I taught myself advanced analytics through online courses. I worked 80-hour weeks from my tiny studio apartment. I lived on ramen and coffee and determination. My family saw none of the work. They just saw me at home in sweatpants on my laptop. They assumed I was unemployed or barely scraping by. Every family dinner became an interrogation. When are you getting a real job, Harper? Have you thought about going back to school? Don't you want stability? Paige would smirk from across the table, living her best validated life. 3 years ago, I officially started my own company, Lane Analytics. It was just me and a business license at first. I did everything myself: sales, client work, accounting, marketing. I was terrified and exhausted, but I believed in what I was building. I was helping small and medium businesses make sense of their data and use it to grow. I tried to tell my family about it. I really did. I explained what I was doing at Sunday dinners. I showed them my website. I mentioned client wins. But my dad would change the subject or make dismissive comments. My mom would smile encouragingly, but then ask if I was also applying for regular jobs just in case. Paige would literally roll her eyes. The worst was when I landed my first 5-figure contract. I was so excited I could barely contain it. I told my family at dinner, and you know what my dad said? "That's nice, Harper, but how sustainable is it really? One contract doesn't make a career." I stopped trying to share after that. Why celebrate achievements with people who refuse to see them as achievements? My company grew despite my family's lack of support. I hired my first employee, then 2 more, then 5. I moved into a small office space. I built systems and processes. I developed proprietary analytics tools. We started getting noticed in our region, but I stopped telling my family any of it. They had made it clear they didn't care. Meanwhile, Paige got engaged to a guy who worked in finance. The family lost their minds with excitement. Engagement party, bridal shower, wedding planning consumed every conversation. My mom cried happy tears constantly. My dad walked around like his mission in life was complete. I was genuinely happy for Paige, but it stung how celebrated her conventional life was while my unconventional success was ignored. About 8 months ago, my company got approached by Crescent Systems. They're a huge regional tech company that everyone knows. My dad had actually applied to work there years ago and didn't get the job. He talked about them like they were the gold standard of corporate excellence. Their CEO, Grant Holloway, was someone my dad followed on LinkedIn and quoted at dinner parties. Crescent Systems needed help restructuring their data analytics systems. They were expanding rapidly, and their old systems couldn't keep up. They interviewed dozens of agencies, including some big national firms. And they chose us. They chose my company. A team of 8 people working out of a modest office beat out agencies with hundreds of employees. The contract was massive. 6 figures over 18 months. It would triple our revenue. It would establish us as serious players in the market. It was the kind of deal that changes everything. I signed the contract in a conference room, trying not to cry from relief and pride and vindication. I didn't tell my family. What was the point? They would find some way to diminish it or worry about it or not understand it. I had learned that my achievements lived in a separate world from my family relationships. It was lonely, but it was safer than constant disappointment. The project launched, and it went incredibly well. My team was brilliant. We delivered ahead of schedule. We found inefficiencies that would save them millions of dollars. Grant Holloway personally called me to say it was the smoothest vendor relationship his company had ever had. He invited me to present to their board of directors. Me, the college dropout with a laptop. Grant and I developed a good working relationship. He was in his 60s, built his company from nothing, and he respected the hustle. He asked me once why I started my own company instead of working for someone else. I told him I didn't fit in traditional structures. He laughed and said the best people usually don't. That conversation meant more to me than he probably knew. As Thanksgiving approached, I debated skipping it. I had attended every year, and every year left me feeling small and inadequate. But my mom specifically called and asked me to please come. She said it would mean a lot to her. She said Paige's fiancé would be there, and they wanted the whole family together. So I agreed to go. The week before Thanksgiving, I had a call with Grant to finalize our next project phase. At the end, he asked what I was doing for the holiday. I said family dinner. He mentioned he would be in my area that evening visiting his daughter, who lived nearby. Then he said something that surprised me. He said he made a practice of personally thanking key partners during the holidays. He asked if he could stop by my family dinner briefly just to say thank you and drop off a holiday gift for my team. I was caught off guard. I said that wasn't necessary, but he insisted. He said it would only take 5 minutes, and it would mean a lot to him to meet my family. I gave him the address and time without really thinking it through. Part of me didn't believe it would actually happen. CEOs say things like that all the time, and then their schedules change. I figured he would send a card or have his assistant deliver something. I didn't tell my family he might stop by because I didn't want to get my hopes up. Thanksgiving Day arrived, and I drove to my parents' house with low expectations. I wore nice jeans and a sweater. Nothing fancy. I brought a pie and a bottle of wine. I gave myself a pep talk in the driveway about not letting them get to me, about being proud of myself regardless of their opinions, about getting through dinner and going home to my own life. The house was full when I arrived. Parents, Paige and her fiancé Marcus, my Aunt Brooke and Uncle Jim, a few cousins. Everyone dressed nicely and gathered in the dining room. The table looked beautiful with my mom's good china and fall decorations. It should have felt warm and welcoming, but I felt like an outsider before I even sat down. Dinner started, and the conversation flowed around me. People asked Marcus about his job in finance. They asked Paige about wedding planning. They complimented my aunt's new car. Nobody asked me anything. I was used to it. I ate my food and smiled at appropriate moments and thought about the leftover work I had waiting at home. Then my dad cleared his throat. He had that look on his face, the one that meant he was about to hold court, and everyone needed to pay attention. He tapped his fork against his wine glass until the table went quiet. Everyone turned to look at him. "I want to make a toast," he said. Everyone raised their glasses. To family, to tradition, to hard work and success. People nodded and murmured agreement. Then his eyes landed on me. Some of us understand what real success looks like. Some of us are still figuring it out. My stomach dropped. "Here we go." Paige smirked. Marcus looked confused. My aunt raised her eyebrows. "Harper," my dad said loudly, "you keep talking about big projects. Tell us, what exactly have you earned this year?" The entire table turned to me. My cousins paused mid-laugh. My aunt looked eager for drama. Paige leaned back with a grin, ready to enjoy the show. This was my dad's favorite move. Public humiliation disguised as interest. I placed my napkin down slowly. I've earned more than you think. He barked a laugh. Oh, sweetheart. Respect isn't earned by thinking you've done something. It's earned by actual work, real jobs, real paychecks, not whatever little online hobby you call a company. A few people chuckled. My jaw tightened, but I didn't flinch. This was normal. This was every family dinner for the past 5 years. I had learned not to defend myself because it just made it worse. Paige nudged my shoulder. Come on, Harper. Don't look offended. Dad's just being honest.
Honest. Sure.
I looked around the table. Everyone dressed nicely. Full plates. Warm lighting. Perfectly decorated table. And still somehow, I was the outsider in my own family. My dad leaned back, folding his arms. You want respect in this family? Start acting like you deserve it. My heart thudded once, but I stayed calm because I knew something he didn't. I checked my watch. 6:59. Right on schedule. A rumble echoed outside. Headlights flashed through the window. Perfect timing. Paige frowned. Who's that? Are you expecting someone? Before I could answer, the doorbell rang. One sharp, confident chime that sliced straight through the buzz of conversation. My dad groaned. Who interrupts dinner like this? I stood up. Someone who's right on time. Paige rolled her eyes. Dad muttered something about delivery drivers having no manners. But when I opened the door, it wasn't a delivery driver. A sleek black corporate limo sat in our driveway.
Polished.
Imposing. Impossible to miss. And standing beside it was a sharply dressed man with a professional smile and a leather portfolio under his arm. Mississippi Harper Lane? He asked. Behind me, chairs scraped the floor. My family crowded into the hallway. My dad's voice cracked. Why is there a limo here? Before I could answer, the back door of the limo opened, and out stepped Grant Holloway. The man my father admired more than anyone alive. The CEO he had tried to work for. The business leader he quoted constantly. Grant walked right past my stunned family and extended his hand to me with complete respect. Harper, he said warmly. Thank you for taking us on as a client. Crescent Systems is lucky to have your company leading our expansion. The hallway fell silent. Every jaw dropped. And my dad. My dad didn't even breathe. Grant added loud enough for everyone to hear. I insisted on meeting the woman who built the fastest growing analytics agency in our region. Paige's mouth fell open. My aunt choked on her own breath. My dad turned pale. I smiled politely. Not gloating. Not rubbing it in. Just standing tall. Thank you, Mr. Holloway. Your timing is perfect. And I glanced at my dad because he knew exactly what the limo meant. Everything he mocked me for. Everything he dismissed. It was real. And now he had to face it. My dad hadn't moved an inch. He stood frozen in the hallway like someone unplugged his entire personality. For a man who always had something to say, silence looked strange on him. Grant released my hand only to give my dad a polite nod. Mr. Lane. Pleasure to meet you. My dad forced a smile that looked painful.
Yes.
Of course. I didn't know you two knew each other. Grant chuckled. Oh, we don't just know each other. Harper's company is leading our data restructuring project. He glanced at me with respect I rarely saw from anyone in my family. Your daughter is brilliant. My Aunt Brooke actually gasped. My sister Paige blinked like she'd seen a ghost. Hold on, she whispered. Harper, you're working with Crescent Systems? That Crescent Systems. The same one, Grant said proudly. We looked through dozens of agencies, and Harper stood out instantly. The house went quiet enough to hear the heater kick on. My dad's voice trembled. You're working with her? Grant raised an eyebrow. With her? She's not an employee, Mr. Lane. She's the one we hired. Her company is directly partnered with ours. The words hung in the air like a hammer waiting to drop. My heartbeat was steady and warm. Not out of pride, but out of relief. All the nights I had cried alone in my car. All the times my family laughed at my little agency. All the times they asked when I would get a real job. It all finally made sense. Sir, Grant continued, I hope you're proud. Your daughter negotiated one of the cleanest deals I've ever seen.
Proud.
That was a word I couldn't remember hearing from my father. Not once. Not even when I graduated high school. Not even when I helped him during his surgery recovery. Dad swallowed hard. I didn't realize. I looked at him gently. Not angry. Just honest. You didn't ask. Grant smiled. Well, if you don't mind, I only came to stop by and thank Harper in person. I didn't mean to interrupt your dinner. It's no interruption, my mom blurted, rushing forward with a nervous smile. Please come inside. Grant chuckled. Thank you, but I can't stay long. Harper, your next briefing folder should arrive tomorrow morning. Enjoy your holiday. And just like that, he stepped back into the limo, and the car pulled away smoothly, disappearing into the quiet neighborhood. The moment the taillights faded, every pair of eyes turned on me. Dad cleared his throat. You could have told us. I tried, I replied softly. You never really listened. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Paige stepped closer, her expression twisting. So, all this time you weren't failing? I raised an eyebrow. Why was that your assumption? She looked away. Because you never bragged about anything. I let that sink in. Then my aunt muttered, well, I feel like an idiot. My mom touched my arm, her eyes watery. Harper, I'm sorry. I should have defended you more. My throat tightened a little. She had always been quiet. Never cruel, but she never stopped the others either. Dad rubbed the back of his neck. Look, I might have been too hard on you. I didn't say anything. For once I let the silence work on them. We walked back to the dining table slowly. It felt different now. Like someone had cracked open a window and let new air in. Everyone took their seats, but no one picked up their forks. My dad finally exhaled long and shaky. Harper, why didn't you tell me you were doing that well? I met his eyes evenly. Because anytime I talked about my work, you treated it like a joke. That's not what I meant, he muttered. It's exactly what you meant, I said gently. Not angry, just truthful. You've always respected titles and big offices more than effort. But I didn't build something for applause. I built it because I had to. Paige crossed her arms. So what now? You're like rich? I laughed softly. I'm doing fine. That's all. And the CEO came here just to say thank you. I continued, because he respects the work I did. And he respects me. Dad flinched. Not dramatically, but enough. Respect. The one thing he always held over my head like a prize I hadn't earned. He looked down at his plate. Harper, I owe you an apology. My chest tightened. I had waited years to hear those words. But hearing them now didn't feel like victory. It felt like healing. It's okay, I said softly. I never wanted to prove you wrong. I just wanted to be treated like I mattered. You do, he whispered. And I'm proud of you. Genuinely. My eyes burned, but I kept them steady. Thank you. Then my mom suddenly clapped her hands, voice trembling. Well, Thanksgiving dinner just got interesting, didn't it? Everyone laughed awkwardly. And for the first time in years, I laughed too. Not because I needed validation. Not because I needed revenge. But because I finally earned the only victory that truly mattered. My family finally saw me for who I really was. Dinner continued warmer than before. The tension settled, replaced by a strange mix of embarrassment and curiosity. Even the air felt different. Lighter. More careful. Everyone kept glancing at me as if I had changed in the last 10 minutes. But I hadn't changed at all. They just finally saw me. Dad cleared his throat again, softer this time. Harper, if your company is working with Crescent Systems, that means you're doing extremely well. I nodded. We've been growing fast. Paige leaned forward, elbows on the table. How many clients do you have? 7 major ones, I said. Crescent Systems is the biggest. My aunt's jaw dropped. 7? And here I've been telling people you work from your laptop like it's a hobby. I shrugged. I mean, I do work from my laptop. I just happen to run a business from it. That earned a laugh from my mom. But Dad didn't laugh. He looked thoughtful. A little lost even. You built all that by yourself, he said. Yes, I said gently. And I didn't tell you, because I knew you'd judge it before listening. He looked down at his plate. I deserve that. Paige clicked her tongue. Guess I shouldn't have joked about you being unemployed all those times. It's fine, I said. I don't take it personally anymore. She winced. But maybe you should have. Maybe we needed the reminder. My mom rested a hand on my arm. Honey, I want you to know I am proud. I always knew you had something special. I gave her a grateful smile. Thanks, Mom. Dad shifted in his chair, struggling with something. Finally, he said slowly, I shouldn't have said you only get respect when you earn it. I spoke out of pride, and maybe envy too. That stunned me. My father, the man who could never be wrong, admitting envy. At your age, he continued, I wasn't anywhere near what you've built. And maybe I didn't want to accept that you got there without following the path I expected. There it was. The truth. I breathed out slowly. Dad, I didn't need you to understand my path. I just needed you to let me walk it. He nodded. I know. And I'm sorry. Paige suddenly straightened, her expression brightening. Okay, can I say something? This is actually kind of awesome. Harper, we should celebrate this. Aunt Brooke raised her glass. I second that. I feel ridiculous for mocking you all these years. You really pulled something off. I chuckled. It wasn't magic. It was a lot of sleepless nights. Dad smirked slightly. You mean like when you'd be up at 3 a.m. tapping on your keyboard? I used to think you were avoiding real work. That was the real work, I said. He exhaled slowly. Well, consider me corrected. Mom gestured toward the untouched pies. Can we at least celebrate with dessert? For the first time in years, dessert didn't feel like a chore. Everyone gathered, plates made room, passed around pumpkin pie, and the energy at the table shifted from tension to genuine warmth. Even Dad cracked a joke or two. Nothing sharp, nothing belittling. Just small comments about how he couldn't wait to brag about Harper next week. Paige nudged me with her elbow. Honestly, seeing the CEO come for you? That was legendary. I laughed. I didn't plan it to be dramatic.
She grinned.
Oh, but it was. And you deserved that moment. I looked around the table. Faces that once doubted me, now looking at me with respect. Even admiration. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't payback. It was recognition, long overdue, but finally here. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I belonged at this table. Not as the family disappointment. Not as the girl with unrealistic dreams. But as Harper Lane. A woman who built something real and finally earned her peace. After dessert, the house slowly settled into a softer quiet. The kind that only happens when the truth has been dragged into the light and everyone's too relieved to hide anymore. My dad stayed seated while the others carried dishes to the kitchen. He looked strangely small, like a man replaying years of conversations and realizing he had been wrong in most of them. I walked over and sat across from him. You okay? He rubbed his forehead. I didn't see any of this coming. I nodded. I know. And I didn't treat you fairly, he added. All these years I thought you were wandering without direction. Turns out you were building something I didn't understand. You didn't have to understand it, I said softly. You just had to trust me. He flinched, but not from anger. From regret. You're right. And I'm sorry for the way I spoke to you tonight. I shouldn't have talked down to you. Not then. Not ever. Hearing those words felt like a weight leaving my chest. I appreciate that, Dad. He looked up, eyes softer than I had seen in years. You're not the girl who needed my guidance anymore. You're someone I can learn from. I blinked. I'm still your daughter. And I'm proud of you, he said firmly.
More than I ever said.
I was so focused on wanting you to succeed through a path I understood that I never saw you were creating your own. My throat tightened. Thank you. He reached across the table and placed his hand over mine. It was awkward at first. He wasn't a man who showed affection easily, but it felt sincere. Then Paige walked back in carrying leftovers. Are you two having a moment? She asked teasingly. Dad chuckled.
Yeah.
We are. Paige grinned and plopped beside me. Good, because I'm still telling my friends that a limo came to collect my sister on Thanksgiving. That story alone is going viral. I groaned. Paige, please don't make this weird. Oh, it's too late, she said dramatically. You're officially the celebrity of this family. Mom joined us with a warm smile. Well, I'm just grateful we're ending the night together. And Harper, I hope you know this house is always proud to have you here. I leaned into her hug. I know. Thank you. Dad cleared his throat. Harper, I'd like to ask you something. My eyebrows rose. Okay. Would you, after the holidays, help me understand what you do? Not as a father judging his daughter, but as someone who wants to learn. The sincerity in his voice hit me harder than the limo ever could. Yeah, I said with a small laugh. I'd like that. It was the first time he had opened a door instead of closing one. As the night wound down, everyone said their goodbyes with actual warmth instead of forced politeness. The house didn't feel heavy anymore. It felt like a place where things could finally grow again. Dad walked me to the door. You really did earn your respect, he said quietly. I shook my head. No, Dad. I earned myself. The respect came after. He nodded, smiling softly. And I see you now. Really see you. When I stepped outside, the air was crisp, cool, peaceful. The driveway was empty again. No limo. No audience. Just me and the quiet hum of the neighborhood. And oddly, it felt perfect. Because tonight wasn't about showing off. It was about being seen without having to shout. I climbed into my car, turned the engine, and sat there for a moment. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I had anything to prove. I had respect. I had peace. And I had a future I was building with my own hands. As I drove away from the house, street lights passing over the windshield, I realized something profound. This year, I wasn't just grateful for what I had achieved. I was grateful for what I had survived. The years of doubt, the constant dismissal, the public humiliation. All of it had forged me into someone who didn't need external validation to know her worth. Grant's visit hadn't changed who I was. It had just forced my family to see what had been there all along. And that was enough. That was everything. My phone buzzed at a red light. A text from Paige. I'm really proud of you. Sorry I was such a jerk all these years. Love you. I smiled and typed back. Love you too. See you soon. Another text came through. This one from my dad. Thank you for not giving up on us even when we gave up on you first. You're remarkable. I pulled over because tears were blurring my vision. Good tears. Healing tears. Tears that came from a place that had been closed off for so long finally opening again. I texted back. Thank you for saying that. It means everything. And it did. Not because I needed his approval to validate my success, but because I wanted my family in my life. The real version, not the performance version. And for the first time, it felt like that might actually be possible. I drove home to my apartment. Not the tiny studio where I had started, but a nice 2-bedroom place I had earned. I made tea and sat on my couch looking out at the city lights. My laptop sat on the coffee table. The same laptop my family had mocked for years. The tool that had built everything. I opened it and checked my emails. There was one from Grant. Harper, hope I didn't cause too much chaos tonight. Your family seemed lovely. Looking forward to our continued partnership. You're going to do incredible things.
Gee.
I smiled and replied. No chaos. Just clarity. Thank you for taking the time. It meant more than you know. H. Then I closed the laptop and just sat in the quiet. Tomorrow I would go back to work. Back to building. Back to the grind. But tonight I let myself sit in the victory. Not the flashy public moment, but the private knowing that I had stayed true to myself when everyone else told me I was wrong. The girl who dropped out of college. The girl who worked from home in sweatpants. The girl who was too stubborn to give up on a dream that nobody else believed in. That girl had built something real. Something that couldn't be dismissed or diminished or ignored anymore. And the best part? I hadn't become someone else to do it. I hadn't followed their path or met their expectations. I had walked my own way and arrived at a destination that was entirely mine. My phone buzzed one more time. My mom. Honey, I should have asked you years ago about your work. I should have listened.
I'm sorry.
So proud of you. Love, Mom. I set the phone down and wiped my eyes. Years of pain didn't disappear in one night. Years of being underestimated didn't heal with one limo visit. But something had shifted. A door had opened. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like my family and I might actually be able to walk through it together. I went to bed that night feeling something I hadn't felt in years.
Hope.
Not hope that I would succeed because I already had, but hope that the people I loved might finally see me the way I had always deserved to be seen. As capable, as worthy, as enough. And when I woke up the next morning to emails from clients and messages from my team and plans for future growth, I felt grateful. Grateful for the struggle that made me strong. Grateful for the doubt that made me determined. Grateful for the mockery that made me prove to myself what I was capable of. But most of all grateful that I had stayed true to who I was even when everyone else wanted me to be someone different. Because in the end, that's what made the victory sweet. Not that I had proven them wrong, but that I had proven myself right. My father asked what I had earned this year. He expected me to have nothing to show. Instead, a limo arrived carrying the validation he never thought I deserved. And in that moment, 10 years of being the family disappointment transformed into one night of being finally seen. That's what I earned. Not just a contract or a company or respect from a CEO, but the unshakable knowledge that I could trust myself even when nobody else did. And that no matter what anyone else believed, I would keep building, keep growing, keep becoming exactly who I was meant to be. The limo left. The moment passed. But what remained was permanent. My family finally saw me. And more importantly, I had never stopped seeing myself. That was the real victory. That was everything. And as I moved forward into the rest of my life, I carried that knowledge like armor. I was Harper Lane. I built something from nothing. And nobody could ever take that away from me. Not with mockery or doubt or dismissal.
Because I knew my worth now.
And that knowledge was mine to keep forever.